Hello, students at Blackman High School. I am Mr. Seadorf here, Brian Seadorf, one of the librarians here at Blackman High School. And for our next installment of our Blackman High School Conversation With, I have a Blackman High alumnus, Ms. M. Tara Crowl. She is the author of middle grade novels, Eden's Wish and Eden's Escape, published by Disney Hyperion. She's a native of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and she received a BA in Cinematic Arts from the University of Southern California and an MA in Writing from Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia. Tara splits her time between New York City and her family's farm in the Northern Catskills. Please welcome Ms. M. Tara Crowl.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. From a young age, you've said previously in interviews, you were reading. You said before that you would run into things because you had a book in front of your nose. You love A Wrinkle in Time. You love Roald Dahl. How did reading at a young age set the tone for your creative life in the years to come?
Yeah, it's true. I read so much when I was a kid. My dad actually worked at Ingram Book Company, so he would get lots of kind of free books at work, and he would bring them home, and I just read all of them. I'd read through boxes of books, and then I'd read them over and over and over. I think when I was a kid, reading it just shaped the way that I saw the world, which was great because through books, the world can become so much bigger than the world that you see right in front of you. So I think that by reading so many books, I was really able to imagine beyond what I saw in my day-to-day life. And I think books really just became like a safe, happy, comfortable place for me where I could always go back to, and I still always go back to. And they make me as happy today as they did then.
And what was your favorite Roald Dahl?
My favorite Roald Dahl? Oh, it's tough. I love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I love Matilda. I love James the Giant Peach. I actually love like everything that Roald Dahl has written, including all of his adult stuff. I think I've read most of it. His short stories, there's like a BBC series that's based on his short stories, which is amazing. He wrote a James Bond movie.
I did not know that.
You didn't know? Interesting. But yeah, so it's hard to choose.
You're quite the super fan. Very nice.
Yeah, big fan.
So you grew up in Murfreesboro. You went to high school here at Blackman High, home of the Blaze. And I have a list of things here that you were involved with, and it's a rather lengthy list. So let me go through those. Key Club, Renaissance, Student Council, Blackman Voice, the school newspaper, National Honor Society, swim team. You were even voted most likely to succeed in the senior superlatives. So throughout this time, you wanted to be a writer. But you hit a turning point. You were in the school's radio and TV class. You said that you hit a moment, not a moment, but you decided to go into film. What was it about film or in the high school class that made you want to shift your journey?
I think when I was in high school, it was probably toward the beginning of high school, I just became really, really interested in movies and how they tell stories. And I started to just watch movies that had different structures and movies that were a little more experimental. And I just loved what could be done with that form of storytelling. And then when I was in Coach Mac's class, I was doing the stuff for BSPN. So that was, I would be going out and shooting my stories and editing them. And then I started making some short films just for fun with my friends. And then I started making these like movies at home with all this footage that I just started like filming my friends all the time. And then I put them together into these DVDs, which are crazy. But yeah, I just loved like the form of film, and I became really interested in that, and kind of smitten by it. And so I decided that that was what I wanted to study, and I thought, start my career in.
Absolutely. Any other teachers that you remember? You mentioned Coach John McCreary. Or any other teachers that stand out to you you can remember?
Um, yeah, I loved my I loved the history classes that I took. Um, I remember I had European history with Coach Green. I don't know if he's still there. Um, that and my American history class, I really loved. I actually loved math when I was in school as well. Um, so yeah, my math teachers are not as quite as vivid in my memory, but I really loved math and physics when I was in school too.
Absolutely. Any specific, is there any memory about being here at Blackman High that, whether with just friends or whatever, that really stands out to you?
Um, a lot of memories with my friends. Yeah, I was really fortunate to make really, really close friends when I was in high school who are still my best friends. And so I think, that can be pretty unique and pretty rare. And I'm really grateful for it. It's hard to remember one specific memory. I mean, I guess we kind of would get in trouble for some of this stuff sometimes, but we like make matching t-shirts all the time. We'd kind of go on these, we'd kind of get on these like platforms sometimes where we were like, kind of like being vocal about one issue or another, and we'd like, kind of make matching t-shirts and be really defiant about it. But yeah, we had a great time, and they were really good friends and still are.
I noticed in your freshman year, you really joined a lot of clubs. I mean, and even on up through the end, where you were very involved. Was that something you had planned to do, or was that something that really organically happened? Of, I'm going to join that. I'm going to join that.
Uh, I think it happened organically. I was very, I think I was very focused. I was always focused on doing well in school, and I knew that there were all these opportunities in high school to get involved in different things. And so I think, I just kind of figured like, well, I may as well join this. I may as well do this too. And and I don't think it ever felt overwhelming, that I remember. I think it was good, and it enriched my experience.
Did you work anywhere in high school?
Yeah, I worked at Baskin Robbins. I guess it was like the summer after my junior year and my senior year, I think. Yeah,
Your forearm must have been just ripped.
it was. Yeah, and it always had the sticky lines on it from the tubs.
Absolutely. You took a chance, a big chance. From what I could read, you chased the dream and you decided to move across the country to attend the University of Southern California for your cinematic arts degree. So I want to talk college a little bit. I've got some seniors who within 5 or 6 months, they're out.
Mhm.
That is very real to them. What was your favorite class in college?
Uh, I had a lot of classes that I loved in college, actually. I loved my major. So cinematic arts, well, I'm not sure how they do it now, but at the time when I was at USC, it was kind of divided into three subcategories. So there was critical studies, which was what I did, which was sort of like the academic study of film, like sort of like if you took English Lit, how you'd be reading books. So yeah, we'd have a lecture, watch a movie, and then write papers about them in discussion sections. And then there was a production track, for people who want to actually like be on set, be directing or cinematography or lighting or something like that. And then there was screenwriting. So I did critical studies. So some of my classes were, and USC has really an incredible film program, and the instructors were all amazing. Probably my favorite classes were, I actually took a course on James Bond. And then I did one that was all Hitchcock, all Alfred Hitchcock's films. And that really influenced and shaped how I saw storytelling in general. And then I also took a couple classes just for fun that I really loved. Like I took a class on classic rock through the music school. I took a class on the Beatles. So I took a lot of classes that I loved.
Who is the James Bond?
John Connery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite Bond film?
I really like Dr. No, which is the first one. There are a lot that I like, but that one kind of always stuck with me. I really loved it.
What was your toughest class?
My toughest class was probably, even though I was on the critical studies track, I had to take one, like every film student had to take one kind of introduction to production class. And that was probably my hardest class. You make 5 short films in the semester. So you have 1 week for pre-production, 1 week to shoot, and 1 week to edit. And then you show it to the class and everyone gives feedback and you get a grade for it. You do that 5 times during the semester. It's nonstop. And I had not made any film since high school, and it was just not on the same level. And I had like the real camera, and the real equipment. And there were people in my class who already knew, how to light a set and how to do special effects and all this stuff. And I was like, whoo. Anyway, that was really hard, but it was really, really good too. I learned a lot, including I learned that I did not want to be in production, but it was good. It was a great experience. But yeah, I would say that was the hardest.
So what is something about post-high school that there is no way that high school could prepare you for? There's certain things that teachers can tell you, but then there's some things you just have to learn on your own once you're out of high school. What is something that you had to learn on your own, especially moving across the country?
I found college to be a lot more work than high school was. It required a lot more time and commitment, and I was used to being able to skate through a lot of things, and kind of like finish my homework in homeroom or whatever. So I think I had to learn how to study in a way that I hadn't before. I had to learn how to like read a lot of pages of text in a short time, which I hadn't had to do before. And just work harder. If you're in a position where you can skate through things and get good grades, it doesn't carry over into the real world, really.
No.
So yeah, that's something that I learned that I think I didn't really understand before I got to college.
After college, you stayed in California and you went to work in Hollywood. By reading and helping to develop screenplays. I read that you worked with an independent movie producer, literary manager. You again were chasing the dream, and you said that you loved shaping scripts to stories. But I want to know, how did making connections during this time in California affect your opportunities? Because I think connections are very important.
So I did a couple of internships when I was an undergrad at production companies, and I ended up working someone who worked at the first production company where I interned. Um, he ended up being my first boss. And when I graduated, I didn't, I was in the process of interviewing, but I didn't know where I was going to work. And so I was interviewing at all these different places. And I walked into this, this office, and I didn't even know he had left that place and started this other company. But he remembered me from when I had interned. So, and then he hired me because he remembered, that I had been a good intern, I guess. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example, but it really is everything. So I would say, if you want to go into that industry, I would definitely encourage you to intern when you're an undergrad. And, if you're not going to go to college in LA or New York, maybe you can go for a summer for an internship, because that's really an opportunity to meet people, start to make connections, learn a lot, and just kind of like, get your foot in the door when it's not crunch time and you're trying to find a real job that's going to pay you enough to live.
Yeah, it really was. I think what I really like about, well, not a theme of your life, but it seemed like there may have been fear sometimes, but you really did take risks. You really did take chances. You really did say, I'm going to go for it. True?
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. But I think, sometimes you get to a point where I guess the fear of not pursuing something overrides the fear of doing the thing. I'm afraid of regretting not trying something. So that becomes scarier than doing the thing sometimes.
Absolutely, yes. You keep saying you were chasing that dream, but it sounds like when you were there in California, you did hit a moment that deep down you realized that dream of you being a writer was still there. It sounds like it was still back here and it was bugging you. So you took a chance and you decided to move to Sydney, Australia to obtain a master's degree in writing from, help me again with the title.
Macquarie.
Macquarie, there we go.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself from that creative writing program?
Well, I would say, talking about taking risks, that was the biggest risk I think I've taken, because, as you said, it's exactly right. I thought that I wanted to work in Hollywood, and there was a lot that I loved about it. But once I got there, and especially once I got to my second job, which was a step up from my first job, and it was going really well. And it kind of was, because things were going so well, it made me think like, oh, this just doesn't feel quite like what is in my heart. As cheesy as that sounds, I did have that nagging in the back of my mind through it all, that like, and I think I'd realized it kind of, I'd come to terms with it a couple of years before, sort of, but I kind of kept pushing it back, that I wanted to still write books, because I was like, no, that's not realistic. And also, you're doing this now and you're doing well, you have to stay on this track. And then I finally just realized, I was only a couple years into working in Hollywood, but I just realized, like, I could go for it now, or I could like go for it in 10 years after my career is further along, or I could never go for it. So if I'm going to try, maybe I should just go ahead and do it now when I'm still young and I don't have a family to support and I don't have any, strings to tie me down. So it seemed a little bit crazy though. Like when I told people, they actually thought like, oh, okay, that's that's kind of out of left field because yeah, I think, it seemed like I was doing well in my job and I was on a good trajectory. But yeah, I just had a nagging feeling that, and I just kind of thought like, even if I got to the top on this track that I'm on, I'm not sure that I would be happy or satisfied there. I think there's something else that I want. And so yeah, so I made that call and I decided to go to Australia kind of, I think just because um I knew I needed to do something entirely new. I certainly wasn't gonna just quit my job in LA and say, I'm writing now. And I looked at, different programs, and then I saw that there was this one in Australia, and I had never thought about going to Australia before. I didn't know anyone there. I'd never been there, but I just decided that I just said, that's it. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, and even in the midst of all of that, I was, sometimes I was like, what am I doing again? Why am I doing this? It felt weird. But once I got there, it just opened my eyes, opened my world in a new way that I'd never experienced before. Just like I felt like I'd been going along like this, and then it just opened up like this. It just, I don't know how to describe it. It was like I just saw a different dimension to life and what it can be. And I think I allowed myself to see it, whereas like before I'd been pretty goal oriented and always like looking to the next step. And so I just kind of allowed myself to look around and experience something new. And yeah, and it changed me completely. I think like I underwent an enormous change during that move. And I wouldn't say it was, I mean, the program was good, but it wasn't necessarily, just the program itself. It was just the whole change and taking that risk and just doing something that was unexpected and that I didn't think I was going to do, and to realize, wow, there's so much more out there that I still, even after having moved across the country, I just had no idea there was still so much more. And this is only like a tiny little piece of it.
I thought about that too, of you started to have a lot of situations in your life after you moved from here in Murfreesboro, when you moved to LA, when you moved to Australia. There's only you. There's no one you can really rely on that's next to you. It's you. Those decisions are you. And I think that's a big slap in the face for some students also when they get out. Sometimes you're the only one that can make a call. You had those moments too.
Yeah, I still do. And that's why I think like it's important to come to terms with what really are those like things in the back of your mind, those like dreams and desires that you have, and like look them in the face and just say like, okay, this is actually what I really want. And maybe, success might not look for me like it would for other people, or like I expected that it might, but this is this is the thing for me, and this is what is going to give me, like, pursuing this, putting my heart into this is what's going to give me peace regardless of whether I succeed or fail. And that was kind of how I felt. And because at the end of the day, yeah, you live you live in your body, you have your brain, and you like have relationships with other people, but at the end of the day, you go to sleep with yourself, you wake up with yourself, and you have to try to make the most of that, I think.
So we're about to get to these right here. While in Sydney, you started writing what would become your first book, Eden's Wish. But before I get to that, I was really fascinated by this part. You moved to New York City, where you finished it, but in the meantime, you started working a lot of different jobs. You did catering jobs, you did temp jobs in offices, you did tutoring jobs. That to me takes a lot of willpower or survival, or really to me is work ethic. How did your work ethic during that time help you through what would potentially be just, it could be a catastrophic time of finding yourself?
Because first of all, I never thought I was going to move to New York. I kind of thought I would move back to LA after a year in Sydney. And then after that year, I was like, I don't know, that doesn't feel right. And I felt like I wanted to do something brand new. And so I guess, I decided to move to the most expensive city in America. So I had to work my butt off a little bit, and because you can't just sit around and write a book, when nobody's paying you for it. In New York, especially, yeah, you have to keep working, keep moving. Um, and I think, for me, when I moved to New York, if I work a job like I did before, when I was in LA, a job in entertainment, which I probably could have done, but I just felt like that was gonna consume my energy. And I was not gonna have enough left to really give everything to finishing this book, which was what I wanted to do. So I decided that I wanted to do jobs that would basically keep me on my toes, keep me moving all around the city, keep me meeting new people, having new experiences. And it actually provided such a wealth of experience, and I don't know, I don't want to say material, but it did, just being able to be a part of the city in those different ways, working as a temp in different offices, tutoring for kids, working in catering at all these different parties, all in all different parts of the city. And it also, it was hard. So it also did keep me motivated to keep writing that book and making it as good as it could possibly be, so I could sell it and take a step back a little bit.
That's, sacrifice, it sounds
Yeah.
like, a lot too, for something you really loved and wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the hardest job out of all those temp jobs?
Well, I guess the waitering it depended. It totally depended on the party. But sometimes some of those parties, the people just you just want the night to be over.
I think everyone, in my opinion, everyone needs to work in food at least once of
Yeah,
something to know
I
what
think so too. Yeah.
that's really like. With your first book, it's Eden's Wish, you had to finish a draft, find an agent, more revisions, take to the publishers, and then it was sold to Disney Hyperion in a two-book deal that eventually included Eden's Escape. And both of these are middle grade novels. I'm going to actually let you take a moment to describe these books, this world, for the students here.
So Eden's Wish is about a 12-year-old genie named Eden, and she lives in a lamp with her masters, who are kind of like her mom and dad, and she lives like a princess, but all she wants is to be a regular girl and have freedom. She's been to Earth to grant wishes, but she can only go for as long as it takes for whoever has rubbed the lamp to make their 3 wishes, and then she gets sucked back in the lamp. But whenever she's there, all she wants to do is run around, swim in the ocean, go on adventures. She's from a long line of genies that's gone back for thousands of years, and her masters tell her that she's the first genie who's ever been like this. So she finds a way to escape the lamp and comes to Earth, and it's all about her adventures on Earth. She gets caught up in the power struggle between the genie alumni who live on Earth now and are immortal and are loyal to the lamp and its masters, and then these other genie alumni who have formed this organization that's opposed to alumni, and they're trying to get the lamp's power for themselves. So she gets caught in the middle of that. So then in Eden's Escape, she is allowed to go and live on Earth under the care of a guardian, but she's still a genie, so she can still be summoned for wishes. So it's the first time that this has ever happened. So she ends up in New York. She's under the care of a genie alum named Pepper, She then gets summoned to Paris for a granting, and then she gets caught up in a whole nother adventure there.
And for the students, here they are right here.
Hmm.
By the way, they're displayed in our Blackman High School Hall of Fame in the library. So
Nice.
yeah, they're right up there. So Eden's Wish, I noticed the theme of this, Eden's Wish is set in California, correct?
Yeah.
Where you went to college and worked. Eden's Escape is set in Paris, where you visited to research and write, and then it's back in New York. But I noticed travel has made a big impact on your life. And I think I'd like to reiterate again that Murfreesboro, Tennessee kid to California, to Australia, to New York. And sometimes kids think I can never leave if I don't want to. What advice about traveling and seeing the world would you give to students?
You can't overestimate its value. Like the most valuable, wonderful thing that you can do. And it's not, I know it can seem daunting, but it's not really, and it doesn't have to be that expensive. You can find ways to do it affordably. It's worth it just to go to an entirely new place, a new part of the world, and see what people see there. Just have an entirely new view of the world.
What's an international city that's still on your bucket list?
I really want to go to Jerusalem, and I really want to go to Greece.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Favorite U.S. city?
New York.
Yeah. That's where the world revolves around. We all know that.
Well, these days it's a little
Well,
weird, but I still, if you love New York, you love it, and it doesn't really matter. It goes through hard times.
So I'd like to talk outside of writing. You have some other ventures, you and your husband and your son. I know I've seen pictures of him helping on the farm there.
Big
You
help.
Sweet Judy Blues Farm in Greenville, New York. You've had that since 2017. You describe this farm as producing high quality food using sustainable, holistic methods. And just by the pictures, you have cows, pigs, chickens, sheep, goats, vegetables. What am I missing?
We no longer have chickens.
Oh,
Unfortunately, they proved to be we never could really figure out how to protect them from predators. We're in a tough spot for that, just where we are. So ultimately, we decided not to do that, at least for now, until we figure out how that works. But yeah, right at the moment we have cattle, sheep, and pigs.
Nice. You also run, and your husband run Two Hands Cafe.
Yeah, it's mostly him, but yeah.
Is it mostly him? Yes.
I help.
Describe this cafe for me.
So they are all day restaurants with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's an all day menu. My husband is Australian. I didn't meet him when I lived there. I met him years later in New York. Interesting how it worked out. He is Australian, and he grew up there, as most people do there, with a lot of really fresh, healthy avocado toast and eggs, and like delicious big salads, and just really like well-raised meat, like really hearty food, but that's also very fresh and healthy. And they're very focused on coffee, really good coffee. So he kind of brought that concept to New York and opened the first cafe in 2014 with a partner. And then since then, they've opened 3 more restaurants in New York, and then 1 in Austin, Texas this year.
Your food taste has changed throughout this process, correct?
Yeah, I've become more conscious of what I'm eating and where it comes from. Definitely.
Yes.
Obviously now having the farm. And now that's really important to me. Whereas when I was in high school, I didn't know, that's not something that I ever would have thought of at all. Even in college, I've evolved and grown since I've known him, especially.
So what I noticed was that you write, you farm, there's not a verb, you restaurant, you've got your son. How do you juggle everything? I think that's something that students struggle with is I have all of these different moving parts going with work and school. And obviously you do too, you've got all these moving parts. What ways do you juggle everything?
It can be tough, especially right now with my son, because he's at an age where he's really like wanting to interact so much. It's a little easier. It was a little easier when he was a baby, he could just kind of, he slept a lot more and he was a baby, but now he really wants to like play a lot. And I want to be present and be there with him and not be like, on my phone or something. Because also at the moment I have a part-time copy editing job, which is like a few hours every day as well. And I've got some like ghostwriting jobs that I do on a regular basis and a bit of freelance journalism. That's the hardest part. And at the moment, childcare stuff is just a little wonky because of the pandemic, but it's prioritizing what needs to get done, like what needs to get done today, what needs to get done this week, what needs to get done this month, and moving through things. I think I used to be a little more perfectionistic, and now, and I think also it just comes with experience. As you do things more, you get a little more comfortable with doing them, and you can just say like, okay, yeah, that's good enough, I can move on to the next thing, rather than fixating on it and trying to make it perfect. But I think it's good, kind of the same thing as when I was working all those jobs in New York. It's good to stay in motion. I think like there are times when, especially for writing, you do need stillness and quiet to concentrate. But I think that a lot of the time, if you try to empty everything else out of your life and just write or just do the one thing, you probably won't be as productive as you would with other things going, because then you keep momentum. And it depends on different stages of a project. But yeah, at the end of the day, you got to keep moving. You got to keep you got to keep making money, whatever that might look like. So I've got to, as a writer, like it's hard to find yourself in a position where you've got a steady stream of income. So you got to kind of like seek out different jobs and, different things you can do, and keep making money so that you can keep doing what you want to be doing.
And there are no vacation days on a farm too, correct?
That's true. No vacation days with a 2-year-old either.
No, there's not. I've got one last question before I throw a couple of fun ones at you. Okay. And I really appreciate, from what I can tell through your Twitter feed, how you like to also give back to the world too. You have certain things that you're passionate about. One of those is you work with the Girls Right Now organization. What are some other ways, you can talk about that as well, but what are you passionate about giving back to the world?
Well, I think, writing fiction is really unique and special. I mean, a lot, so many things are, but just from my perspective, I love writing fiction because you really are in a position where you can give hope. Like I hope that through the Eden books and the other middle grade fiction that I write, that I can just encourage kids and give them hope. And like one of the things that I wanted to come across in the Eden books was just how big and wonderful the world is, kind of how we've been talking about, and that it can be hard, but it's worth it. It's worth taking those risks and putting yourself out there and seeing what you can find. And as a part to promote the Eden books, the main thing that I did was do school visits. That was like an incredibly special part of it for me as well. Obviously, it's been a while since that's been possible. This year is not very school visit friendly, but yeah, I love going and talking to students and encouraging them. I try to donate my books whenever and wherever I can to schools and libraries, and donate other books to schools and libraries when I can, because yeah, I just think that reading, and when I look at my life, reading fiction when I was young made such an enormous impact on me, and really, like, my life wouldn't have been the same had I not had so much exposure to books when I was young. So I'm passionate about, providing that same opportunities to see the world and imagine bigger, and hope more to kids and young adults and teens. Yeah.
Absolutely. You've definitely put ripples out in the world, just so you know.
Thanks. I mean, I don't know. I'm not, I'd love to do so much more, but you know, but gotta just do what you can when you can, and then hopefully there will be more opportunities.
There will. I got some fun questions for you. When you look back 5 years from now and you think, oh, 2020, what is one memory that stands out?
We have been living back and forth between the city and the farm, but really this whole year we've just been at the farm, and we're actually not going to have an apartment anymore in the city for the time being. So we've mostly been at the farm, but we came to the farm 2 day, or like the day that they closed indoor dining in New York City. And then my birthday was 2 days later. So yeah, it just stands out to me because we actually had a couple of friends who came up with us. So it was nice. We had a couple of us here, but it was also just a very strange time to have a birthday.
I'm going to have you rank the following musicals. You have, I saw an interview where you named these musicals, and I want you to rank them, one being your favorite.
Okay.
Singing in the Rain, Fiddler on the Roof, My Fair Lady.
Singing in the Rain and My Fair Lady are so close. I guess I'd probably have to say My Fair Lady, then Singing in the Rain, and then Fiddler on the Roof.
Favorite movie director?
Hitchcock.
Hitchcock. Well, that was fast. Yes.
Yeah.
The Birds messed me up when I was a kid. Yes.
Well, they will all mess you up.
Yes. When you think of high school, what movie pops in your head?
This is kind of a weird one. I think this was when I was in high school. Being John Malkovich.
So good.
In my head. Which is still one of my favorite movies, but I think I watched it when I was in high school, and just loved it. It's so bizarre and
It's
great.
so bizarre. It's so strange. When you think of music you listened to in high school, what music were you listening to?
I was listening to like hip hop, like Nelly, and what else? Like Ja Rule and stuff. Yeah, stuff like that we listened to when I was in high school.
Please tell me you had a Band-Aid underneath your eye, like Nelly did.
At some point. Oh, I used to love Avril Lavigne. My friends and I used to dress up like her and wear ties with our tank tops. Probably nobody at Blackman knows what that means or who I'm talking about. You do.
I bet they do. Hey, Green Day's still around. Like, they're still living Green Day.
Yeah.
What's the most boring thing about you?
I kind of feel like I'm generally pretty boring, but I don't know. I guess like at the moment my day-to-day life is pretty boring. It's just like, like toddler, computer, and like cows.
Cows.
Yeah.
What's the most New York thing about you right now?
The most New York thing, meaning like the city or the state?
The state. Or northern thing, if you would like to say.
This is like completely not a New York thing, but it is a northern thing. My husband loves, which he just, when he moved to America, he decided that he was going to love all the Boston teams. So because I never really was like that much of a sports fan before, I've become a Boston fan for everything now too. So that's pretty northern. It's definitely not New York though. Yeah, I can't think of
Yeah.
anything. I guess one New York City thing, I have become a little bit of a coffee snob, which
Mhm.
I wouldn't have expected because I didn't even drink coffee. And then when I did, I used to drink it with like, 6 sugar packets in it. So yeah, so that's a New York thing, I guess.
What's the most Tennessee thing about you still? Or has all the Tennessee worn off of you?
No, it hasn't. No. Most Tennessee thing. Well, I actually didn't like country music until I left Tennessee, but now I love it. Once I got to LA, I realized like, oh, I really miss country music. I realized I would just hear it all the time, even though I wasn't actually listening to it. So that's maybe the most Tennessee thing. I also have like, I have a pickup truck now with like John Deere like steering wheel cover, and yeah, some of that stuff that I never had when I was in Tennessee.
Nice. What are you currently reading?
I just started a new book by Otessa Moshfegh. Do you know her?
Mm-hmm.
She is she's such a strange writer, but I love her so much. For some reason, I'm just mesmerized by her writing. So I'm reading her book that came out this year, which is called Death in Her Hands. And I'm listening to a young adult book. I'm always listening on Audible. I'm always listening to books because it's a lot more feasible with a toddler. While I'm running around
Yes.
after him, I'll have something going, or if I'm taking him for a walk. I also listen to books if I'm like out doing chores with the animals, because then I can multitask. So I'm listening to the new book by Karen McManus, um, who wrote, I'm blanking now, but this one is called The Cousins.
Nice.
She wrote like a young adult mystery that was like a super bestseller that was really good. And now I'm blanking. It's like The Breakfast Club, but a murder mystery.
Ooh.
But I'm blanking on what it's called. Anyway.
Audiobooks changed my life too. Same.
Yeah. Or in the
Absolutely.
car when you're driving, it's like, wow, now I can read and do other things at the same time.
Yes. My last question is, as President Jed Bartlett from the West Wing would say, what's next?
We're growing the farm. So we just got a bunch of new pigs. We're doing the pigs. Yeah, we're like working on we actually started a new company through our farm where we're selling to individuals, but we're also selling to my husband's restaurants and hopefully other restaurants as well. For the first time this year, I have started writing short stories like for adults, which I've never done before, but it's been great. I just, I felt like I needed, I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to grow creatively and I was drawn toward it. So I did a master class with Joyce Carol Oates, and then I just started writing some short stories, and I've got a great writers group that I've had an opportunity to, workshop. I'm gonna start doing that along with continuing to write middle grade. I've got a new middle grade book, which I'm like about to start querying. More writing, more farming. I've got a baby on the way in May.
Oh, nice. Congrats. That's awesome.
So yeah, so that's what's next.
Well, for the audience, check out Eden's Wish and Eden's Escape by M. Tara Crowl. Also, check out Two Hands Cafe, Judy Blue's Farm, and there's tons of different things going on. M. Tara Crowl, thank you so much for your time here with Blackman High. And any last words for our audience?
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for doing so much research and putting so much thought into those questions. That was great. It was really fun. Everyone, good luck getting through the rest of this pandemic. I'm sure it's hard in high school, but it'll end. Things will be so much better. And for all of you going to college, good luck. Enjoy it and take all the good and forget about the bad stuff.